if you decide to buy a parcel of land with another person, maybe with your wife, or maybe with your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, your business partner, your friend, provided it is not just you paying for that land, you are two or more, that land is jointly owned. In this video, I'm going to be talking about joint ownership of land, what you should look out for if you're going to be buying land that is jointly owned by two or more persons, what you should look out for if you're going to be buying a parcel of land with another person, and how to manage a joint ownership. My name is Olisa, and this is Lands and Houses TV, where I give you all the information you need to make safe and profitable real estate investments right here in Nigeria. If you are visiting this channel for the first time and you haven't subscribed, please do well to click on the subscribe button and then tap the little notification bell by the side of the subscribe button so that whenever we post new videos, you'll be the first to know. Now let's go straight into it. So any land that is purchased by two or more persons is jointly owned, right? Yes, that means that all the rights, all the benefits, all the claims over that piece of land belongs to the owners. Let's say it's a husband and a wife, so it doesn't belong to one person. Now let's look at it. First of all, if you want to buy a parcel of land with your husband or with your wife, how do you go about it? So after doing your due diligence and doing whatever you need to do to purchase that parcel of land, you now come to the documentation part of the documentation part of the process. You need to document, you need to sign a contract, the lawyer needs to prepare a deed of assignment. How do you go about that? First, the rule of thumb is that because it is two persons, the two persons' names should be written as two individuals. So let's say Olisa and Mrs. B. So, or let's say I am buying a parcel of land with my wife. Instead of saying, when I get married, instead of saying Mr. and Mrs. Olisa, we would rather say Mr. Olisa and Mrs. B. Now, the idea is this. If you put it as Mr. and Mrs. Umera or Mr. and Mrs. Olisa, what happens is that in the case of a divorce, in the case of a separation, someone else, another woman, would come in and bear the name Mrs. Olisa. So there really is no way to determine that it was you who bought the land with him. So if your name is Margaret and your husband's name is Paul and your son name is, say, Penn, you understand? Instead of saying Mr. and Mrs. Penn or Mr. and Mrs. Paul Penn, we would rather say Mr. This land belongs to, or this land, whatever, belongs to Mr. Paul Penn and Mrs. Margaret Penn. What this means is that there are two owners of the land. That's one. Two, what it also means is that if there is a case of separation or if there is a dispute, the documents of the land sees it as you and your husband. Because like I said before, anybody could be Mrs. Penn, anybody could be Mrs. Paul Penn. That is documentation. So if the person is not your husband or your wife, if the person is not your significant other, the two names should be spelled out correctly. So let's say I want to buy with my brother, I could say this land, purchased between Olisa Umera and, say, Peter Umera, two different persons. That's number one. Now, before buying a parcel of land that is jointly owned by two or more persons, what you should understand is that one person cannot sell or dispose of a parcel of land without the consent of the other person. Now, what it means is that if you want to buy land that is owned by two or more persons, both persons or all the parties involved must consent to that transaction. If they don't, then you basically have bought let's say a litigation, or what you have is a defective title, because you will not be able to register your title, because basically there's a term in law that says you cannot give what you don't have. You understand? And by law, if it's a joint ownership, one person cannot give out the land, because that one person does not own the whole land. So if you want to buy a property that is jointly owned, you need to get the consent of the other person. Now, what if the other person is dead? Because there are cases like that. What if the other person is dead? Then the person who is selling the land to you, the other person has to provide a death certificate, the other person's death certificate. One, the person has to also provide a sworn affidavit attesting to the fact that all the rights and all the benefits, of that land has been transferred to him or her. Those are two different documents. One thing you should also know is that if two persons buy a parcel of land and one person dies, the person who is dead cannot say, or we cannot say that the person who is dead has a next of kin and then the land has been transferred to the next of kin. No. Except you manage it properly, and I'll come to that. So we cannot say this is your next of kin, so that land has been passed, to the next of kin. Automatically, what happens is that the ownership of that parcel of land, moves to the surviving person. Only the surviving person. No next of kin, no nothing. Another thing that is worthy of note is that if a parcel of land is owned by two persons and one person goes ahead to start building on the land, as far as the law is concerned, the building on that parcel of land is owned by the joint owners. And now, if you build on that parcel of land, you cannot sell that building legally without the consent of the other person. That's another thing. Now, so how do we manage a joint ownership? First of all, when you purchase a parcel of land with another person, first thing you should do is to consult a lawyer to prepare a deed of partition. So the deed of partition will indicate what rights each person has to that property, and each person's limits, to that property. It also says, how you are going to convert your part of the property to individual ownership. It also says what might happen in the event of selling the property. Basically the deed of partition says this part is yours. You can do this, you can do that. Now, in the case where a partition is not possible, it is recommended that a lawyer prepares a contract or a document for management of that property and final sale and sharing. Now, this document should indicate the next of kin. So the document should indicate that, in case this person passes on, this person or your son, your daughter, whoever the person is, whoever your next of kin is, now has rights to the ownership, to that part ownership of that property. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is, before buying a property that is jointly owned by two or more persons, first things first, when, of course, I've said this several times, you do your due diligence, so you find out who owns the property. When you find out that the property is owned by two or more persons, the next thing is to find out all the owners, like to get all the owners of the property on ground, and then ensure that they are in support of that transaction. When you are sure that they are in support of that transaction, you make an offer letter to all parties involved in that property, all parties owning that own that property, and they should all give their written consent by signature or something that they accept the sale or the purchase of that property. After that is done, you go ahead, do other forms of due diligence, and you purchase the property. At the end of the transaction, all parties involved, all parties that own that property, all parties owning that property should sign, should give their consent, should sign at the end of the transaction, either on your contract of sale and your deed of assignment, whatever documents they are signing, the owners, all of them should sign the documents, which is most likely going to be the deed of assignment. All right, guys, I hope you've been able to understand, what it means and the implications, rather, of joint ownership of a parcel of land. If you find this video interesting, if you find this video relevant, please share it with other people. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section. If you like the video as well, please give me a thumbs up. And then if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please tap on the subscribe button and tap on the notification bell so that whenever we post new videos, you'll be the first to know. All right, guys, till the next video. Bye-bye.